The Unused Subs is proudly presented by McDonald's. Don't forget to subscribe. Olympic gold medal winning coach BEV PRIESTMAN joins the bench. Ifill navigates heat and power cuts in Honiara, while Jacob and I hold things down right here at Tyler Street Sport. I thought we'd start by doing a bit of a thermostat check.
Yeah.
How hot is Honiara, Paul Ifill?
I've got no energy left. It's ridiculous. I've been to some hot places, but this takes the cake.
How many drinks breaks have you had in the hotel this morning, Ifill?
I'm drinking litres daily. I just can't get enough in.
36 degrees and 95% humidity.
Yuck.
Yeah, it was 36, felt like 46 apparently.
Oh.
That's what we were told. Yeah, it was crazy. 4 players had to come off with heat stroke. We just weren't ready. We weren't prepared for it.
Honestly, Ifill, I think I tell people about this and they're like, yeah, okay, it's hot. Like I've played in summer and it's not the same thing. It is wild. We had, when we played up there for the under-20s, we had 3 players come off in the first half. We used up all of our subs in the first half. It was insane.
And everyone who hasn't been subbed off is like, oh, fuck, I've got to keep going.
Honestly, the heartbreak on some of the faces when the third sub went off, it was like, come on, man, we've got no insurance policy here.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it is wild. I don't think you can explain it to people properly.
In Auckland, not as hot temperature-wise, but Auckland FC, they've done the business against Melbourne City 3-0, so that's 8 goals in the last 2 games when you look back to the derby as well. But I'll tell you who's red hot, and you can tell us more, Ifill. It is your best bud, the man that you coached for all those years, Jesse Randall. He's top of the Golden Boot charts. He not only scored at the weekend, delightful assist for Guillermo Mai's goal at the very end of the game. He is on fire, mate.
Yeah, look, I don't want to claim too much. I only claimed it for 6 months, so you pumped it right up, which is class. I love that.
I'm embellishing,
I'll take it.
Mate. Embellishing, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. But he's at it. Like I said, I think it's the confidence of the move. He knows he's above the level. He's playing with a swagger at the moment, and I think he looks like arguably top 2 or 3 in the A-League.
Well, we go from the hot to the cold Wellington Phoenix.
Greeny's just turning on the hot tap, mate.
Yeah. We hope that they become warmer, and maybe they will over the next 7 games. But what did you see from a cool Wellington Phoenix against Sydney FC? Any signs of change under Chris Greenacre?
What they were favouring was stability, consistency, certainty. Greeny actually didn't make any changes apart from not having Eze, who was suspended.
Yeah.
So Piper was the only change of that side, and he kept the same formation. So I really like that because I think as a new coach coming in, you could be very excited. You might be egotistical. You want to stamp your authority all over everything to do with the team. Greeny just sat back and said, what's best for the players? What's best for the team? And yes, a 1-0 home loss, another loss at home for the Wellington Phoenix this season where they should be so strong, but they were unlucky. They had another penalty taken off them. I have no idea.
It's becoming a weekly occurrence,
honestly,
isn't it, Ifill?
Yeah. I mean, Grant said in the post-match, I stood my ground. Yeah, well, you don't really stand your ground with 2 hands in the back.
Oh, that's a pen. There's no 2 ways about it. I saw it live, and then what I was watching was what the referee was watching, and I think they weren't giving him the best angle. And to have it overturned was just devastating, and that could have been the turning point for Greeny and the boys. What I liked about Greeny's approach was he said, I'm going to give all these boys an opportunity to right the wrongs of last week and stack by them, which will get them back on side, regardless of the result. And I think if that penalty had gone in, they may well have nicked a point, and it would have been the start of something. So he's got a bit of work to do, but I think he's done okay, sort of quietly.
And there's still an opportunity for the Phoenix. I feel like we keep on saying this, but with 7 games left in the regular season, Ifill, and a lot of those matches are against teams in and around them or above them, in close proximity to them on the A-League ladder.
With a lot of away trips.
You take points off these teams and then you're denying them the opportunity to get into the 6, and they're only 5 points off it, Paul.
Yeah, look, I think you've got to look at the bigger picture a little bit and go, Greeny's been handed a bit of a hospital pass. He's had to go in and put his arm around a few, and he's gone into the really big game without Eze, who's looked like our only threat. for most of the season. So he gets another week to work with the players. Eze back. Maybe he gets Luke Brooks-Smith, gives him a bit of love. There's work needs to be done on Corbin Piper. I've talked about it over the last few weeks about his finishing. Same chance again. Doesn't move the keeper, hits it straight at him. So, look, Greeny's a former forward. He'll be able to help those guys, hopefully put the ball in the net more often.
Oh, Ifill, I don't know if you're hearing this, but there's some breaking news, mate. That's coming out here in Auckland.
The Unused Subs would like to announce the first ever Subs for Subs grand prize draw. The Unused Subs will pay for your subs. That's the subscription, your fees to play club football within Aotearoa, New Zealand, to the tune of $500 cold hard cash. That's for one lucky individual. Later today, a video will be posted to the Unused Subs social media network. That's on Instagram, on Facebook, and on TikTok. Once you've liked our pages, followed the Unused Subs, and subscribed to the YouTube channel, please nominate either yourself or someone you know that is thoroughly deserving of receiving the first ever Subs for Subs grand prize. And tell us in the comments who you play for and why the person who's been nominated is thoroughly deserving of receiving the Subs for Subs grand prize. You must be 18 years or older to enter. Submissions close on March 17, 2026. Our winner will be revealed 1 week after that on March 24th. That's the first ever, hoping to be annual, Subs for Subs grand prize draw. $500 awarded to a deserving Kiwi to play club football in 2026. How good. If you want the Unused Subs to help you or someone you know, we'll see you in the comments. Back to you, Jacob.
That's pretty awesome. Already the partnership is bearing fruit for footballers in New Zealand, mate. That's awesome.
And no, Ifill, I'm not going to give you the money.
Ooh.
I don't think Ifill's had to pay for his subs for a wee while, mate, has he?
When was the last time you paid for a subscription to play?
Last year. I got 10 goals in 9 appearances and still had to pay.
The arc of football, Ifill. You go back to where you were, mate. Back in amongst it.
Absolutely.
BEV Priestman, thank you so much for joining the Unused Subs. It's almost the calm before the storm for you, isn't it? Because we've got this international break. The Wellington Phoenix women's team dispersed, if you like. Some are with Paul Ifill in Honiara, the Solomon Islands. But you've got this 5-match run to ensure playoffs comes to Wellington for the women for the very first time. So how are you coping with this little lull in terms of your club activity?
Yeah, to be honest, I want to get going, right? It's probably, it felt like it came at the right time. I think I had some leggy players on my hands by the end of it, but I do feel a little bit like, let's get going. So yeah, you just, every time there's an international window, you're praying all of your players are going to come back, you know, raring to go and not injured. And then it's how you keep this group ticking and ready to push for that, like you say, 5 games in 20 days. It's almost like an Olympic tournament. It's tight turnaround. So what I've said to the staff is I want to use this window to be the best staff and really maximise the 2 weeks. And in that, I'm sick as a dog, and I have been for 3 weeks. So maybe I needed this international break.
Bev, same here. Honestly, for the last 2 weeks, my little fellow showed up from daycare and he's just brought home this bug, which is horrible.
Stay away from me.
Giving me a very sexy voice, though, which I'm happy about.
Says who?
Me. Bev, you talked about managing the staff, and obviously you've still got some of the players there. I mean, not all the players have been called up for international duty. So you talked about being the best you can be. Knowing coaches and knowing what they're like, is it hardest to manage yourself or the playing group that's back in New Zealand at the moment? Because I imagine you are looking for something to do as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I obviously, coming from international and my experiences, a lot of what I do is, you know, in a meeting room and then out on the pitch. And I've really pulled back all of that. Give them a sleep in, stay away from the meeting room, and just get them on the pitch and keep them moving. So I think, yes, you're right. I've had to, like, hold myself back more than anything. I think it's what we're doing as staff behind the scenes to get ahead of the tight turnarounds and things. But yes, I think, it's managing us more maybe than managing them.
When you have got the players away on international duty, how does it work for the viewers at home? Do you get a report on how they've gone, how they're dealing with things, and how do you look to integrate them back in? Do they need a little bit more time sometimes, or is it, straight back in, we're heading to the playoffs?
Yeah, and I think, to be honest with you, going into this window, especially you look how many players are away with the Ferns, that's my flag a little bit, right? You look at the heat. They'll only have match day -1 trainings on probably not some of the best pitches in incredible heat, and the intensity of the games. So there's a lot of sort of variables, and so one of the things I want to do is really have our sports science link up with the football Fern sports scientists to make sure that if they're not playing, what are they doing to make sure that they're high speed runs and everything, so they don't come back sort of undercooked, ready to go, or overcooked if you look at it the other way. So I think that is the biggest thing, is I know from being national team coaches how you link in from a club perspective and get that alignment. And I think for us is making sure that those Ferns who won't have really had a day off, they do get a little bit of time, because I do think we have that luxury maybe of an extra day or two when they get back before we ramp them up. And then Lucia Leon's, away Dominican Republic doesn't get back until the 10th. Her travel back is outrageous. She's got double-day training sessions and things. So, yeah, you just want to get them back in one piece, and then you've got to manage what they come back ready to roll.
Bev, how on bloody earth have you done it with the Wellington Phoenix? Because when they first came into the competition, there was a sense of expectation in the football community here in New Zealand that this team was going to be good. They would hit the ground running and be in the playoff spot straight away. That wasn't to be. Yet you've put together an incredible squad which has, faced adversity. We've had players that are out with season-ending injuries. CJ Bott, your skipper, is away through pregnancy. Macey Fraser has taken time away from the game to sort out her mental health. And yet you're still within touching distance of the top of the table, and playoffs football will be coming to Wellington. I'm convinced of it, and so are Ifill and Jacob. It will be coming to Wellington in the coming weeks. But, behind it all is you. You've orchestrated this whole thing. So how have you managed to do it in the face of such adversity?
Well, I think, it's easy to say it's me, but I think, we're 5 years in the making. I think I always value the work of people who came before me. Temps was here for a couple of seasons, Natalie Lawrence before that. So I think the group is actually, the club more than anything, is gradually sort of built. And yes, they've probably invested more than they ever have, not overly compared to last year, but definitely have. So I think it's actually been a good foundation to build upon. But I think in terms of where we're at this season, I think the mentality of the group, right? I can't allow excuses of injuries, and that's the easy thing to do. And I don't think anybody performs at their best when you allow that, right? When everyone's got a crutch of, we're missing 5 players. It's very easy to do that. And I think more than anything, I've really dialed in and tuned into the standards every day, because I am a big believer in how you train is what shows up, at the weekend. So that's been a big part of it. I think the partnerships, and I think just the trust in the process. And that sounds very cliche, but I don't think we had the best start, right, with a lot of chopping and changing on players in and out. But I did see, the signs were there, right? Clean sheet mentality. We were creating chances. We weren't just putting it in the back of the net, and then, eventually that comes through. But I still think we've got some work to do. I don't think we've been consistent enough across games to say, right, playoffs is guaranteed, and when we get there, we're going to go all the way. I think in this period, in this 5-game stretch, I'm actually looking just for consistency and really high standards. And I think that'll be the difference maker. It's not that you turn to a bad team overnight or you're incredible overnight. It's actually that part that I'm looking for to be consistent.
Looking at the team, it very much is in your profile. It's got clarity around the direction, it's confident in what it's doing, and it is high energy. And I think anyone that is watching this podcast is watching you explode out of your frame at the moment.
I'm feeling so enthused right now.
Exactly.
I feel like I need Bev in my life every week just to motivate me.
I think with Chris Greenacre and Bev...
That's undiagnosed ADHD, I think.
I think with you and Greeny down taking both Phoenix teams at the moment, brick walls are in danger in Wellington because the fans, I think, will sense the energy. And I've seen the fans show up to the Phoenix games, and it has been a wonderful atmosphere. But coming back to the original question, over the course of the development, as G alluded to there, what has been the thing that you've been the most pleased with from your side?
Do you know what? I think when they put their mind to something, you know, you look at the 7-0, the 5-1, the 3-0, that is a team that's been dialed in. And when we are, and we're like completely dialed in and there's no wavering, that's when we can be unstoppable. I think that's the moment where I'm like, I know the team can be that. And sometimes in teams, they don't know it themselves. And sometimes a coach, you've got to like, you know, massage that out of them or help them see it in themselves. I think that's what I've been pleased with, is like they can deliver at a certain level. I think on the other side of that, I've seen us, you know, maybe not kill a team off when we should have, you know, wasted chances. And I think that's the bit that I want to really stamp out in this last bit, and clean sheets, right? Back end of the season, really tough run, like defend well, and I think we've got enough up top to go and do what we need to do for the rest of it. So I think it's that. It's when we are dialed in and we actually are really challenged in something, they've seemed to be able to step up and do it.
You mentioned that the next 5 games over 20 days, it's almost like an Olympic-style run. Obviously, you've had very good experience at an Olympics before.
I like this from
gold
you.
medal win,
yes.
Of course, with Canada.
Well done.
But how does club football differ from national football, where you're in those short, sharp tournament phases, and now you're in this elongated process with the Wellington Phoenix women's team?
High five. That was seamless. Well done.
Thanks, mate.
I think the big thing for me has been trying to get the balance right? You go into international and you have 2 or 3 days. I mean, Paul's living that right now, to like get your tactics across. And I think where I've evolved in the season is not trying to change the world every day tactically, right? And there's the joy of the game, there's flow, there's, you know, like principles, and not being obsessed with the tactics, because I think I have also felt in games where I'm like, tactically, the A-League can be wild, right? It can be moments of individual brilliance and transition and things that maybe at an international level, maybe it's all purely tactics, or not all, but, you know, it's picking the right team, getting the culture right and the tactics. So I think that's been the big thing of like not mentally burning out a group as well as technically, tactically and physically. So I think it's that. It's like not trying to change the world every day. And then at this point, I think using this break to sprinkle a little bit of like 2, 3, 4% details that maybe I get a chance to stop, look back over the last block of games and say, right, okay, if I'm playing against us now in these next 5 games, what might I do? How can we improve individually, and putting those little details in now in this next little block?
I want to take you back to earlier in the season, before the 7-0 actually, and you guys were playing ever so well, keeping clean sheets, creating chances, but not just, you know, it was that final effort really, putting the ball in the back of the net, which is the hardest part of the game. Was there something that clicked kind of overnight there, or was that a process that you've been working on for weeks, and that was kind of the culmination of the work that had been done behind the scenes?
Yeah, I think the process didn't change, but I think what we definitely did that week going into the Sydney game is I just literally, it was that part of the pitch that was letting us down. And so I think I ramped up how much work we did and went, you know what, like, yes, for every game you prepare an X, Y, Z way, but I parked that a little bit and just spotlighted that area of the pitch and did that week going in. I also think I tweaked based on the personnel that we had, right? I think we played a certain way or a certain shape more so. And then I remember the second half of the Perth game, I tweaked a little bit and went more to a 3-5-2 and played with more 2 centre forwards to get people more in the width of the goal. So I tweaked a few little things going into that game, and it seemed to come to fruition all at once. But I do think the process and what I'd asked of the players didn't change in that entire time. I think we're measuring certain statistics in that part of the pitch, and we track them all of the way through. But I think the process, I just put a lot more work on it.
Bev, sorry to interrupt. We've just had a couple of legends walking. Yeah.
Well, they were knocking on the window. Are you going to at least come on screen? Or?
Yeah, come
on.
Otherwise, it just makes us feel
weird.
like we're talking
We've
to
got Rory.
ourselves.
Yeah, so
Oh,
we've got
hey, Rory,
the guy
how
that got
are
us
you?
to the World Cup, and then the one that scored the first goals hanging out behind the screens there at the moment.
What's going on,
He's
Rory?
shy.
Good to see you. Come around here, mate. Give us a cuddle. Good to see
Go
you,
on,
mate.
man.
Bloody good, mate. Good
What
to
are
see
you
you.
back for?
Good seeing you, man.
Oh, really? Big unit. Lovely to see you again, mate. How are you?
I know these two guys.
That's Spoonley's head.
Yeah.
Big, strong head.
There's only one man with a melon like that in Auckland. It could only be Jacob.
Nice, big, strong head.
Yeah, come into camera when you're going to talk shit. Come into camera.
Well, hopefully that camera's
No,
picking
I'm
him up
going to let you
talking
guys
shit.
get on with it, but good seeing you guys.
Good to see
All
you.
right, Rory.
See you guys.
Good to
sorry
see you.
Sorry about
Go on,
crowd.
you're
Thanks
winning.
for stopping in, boys.
Lovely to see you. You just never know who you're going to bump into around here, eh?
That was disturbing. Just
That was
turning around
crazy.
and seeing.
Yeah, Winston Reid peering in through the window and then Rory Fallon in a,
It was very
in a tank
intense.
top.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay, let's talk some more strange things. Football fans know your story, Bev, and what happened at the last Olympics. You've ridden a bit of a roller coaster, haven't you, in terms of that year where you were out of the game. And I've read articles, I've seen videos where you've spoken about the dark times. And I think you wouldn't be human if you haven't experienced some dark times. But I suppose your experience is so much harder to deal with because it's on a worldwide, a global scale. There are articles being written. You're attacked on social media. I read that people were knocking on your front door and you had to get out of Canada. Can you talk to us a little bit about the horrifying experience of the fallout from that Olympic campaign?
Yeah, and I think what you touched on there, I think it was probably the public nature of it, and you know, everybody, there's a narrative that's just running, and you're sort of like, you know, in your home. Probably we all slept in the basement. Actually, you know, in Canada, North America, you have bigger houses. You know, the whole family slept in the basement during that period, and yeah, I think, you know, ultimately it felt like a public breakup too, right? You've been with a group for a long period of time, you've ridden the highest of high and then obviously the lowest of low. But that's playing out over the media too. And yeah, I mean, it was a difficult time, I can't deny that. But at the same time, I do believe that in every sort of loss, if you look at it in a football standpoint, there's learnings that come out of it. And you have to go through that. Every time something now sort of crops up, there's a reflection in that moment, right? There's everything I seem to go through as a coach, or you know, whether it be working with staff, working with players, that I've now got some like significant public experience to draw from. You know, when you look at Josh, right, who went through in the derby, he would have got some massive social media scrutiny, and I just think about his mental health first and foremost. And so, yeah, I think it was a tough time. And a lot of learnings come out of that. And, you know, unfortunately, I'll have that now always labelled with my name. But at the same time, I think I'm more determined than ever, and, you know, maybe a bit fresher as well now to tackle things head on. At that time, you just had nothing about me, and you know, I'm just trying to survive every day and look after my family. And, you know, then I landed in this beautiful country where I've been before. And now this is part of the comeback, which is great.
How did you go from Canada to Wellington, Bev? Because I think that's a curious step, isn't it, in a lot of regards, with New Zealand being involved in how you left the Canadian national women's team.
Yeah, and I think, you know, New Zealand, I used to talk about it feeling like home. I've sort of had two stints here. When I was 16, I first came out, loved the country. Then I was here for a long period of time, involved in the game for probably 6, maybe 7 years. And obviously my wife Emma played for New Zealand. She's a Kiwi, my little boy's a Kiwi. And he had his Kiwi passport, she had her Kiwi passport, and I had my permanent residency, you know. And so in that moment, I remember her calling me as I'm about to board the plane from Paris to come home. And I remember her saying to me, like, we've got to pack up the house. And then in that moment, I remember feeling like, oh, that's a bit, you know, bit extreme. This is exactly how I felt in that moment, because you're living in an environment where you're at the Olympic Games and everything just sort of like hit like a bus. But yeah, it kind of landed that we felt it was a good place to come. You know, I had a lot of current Ferns, former Ferns reach out in that moment, more just caring about me as a human being more than anything. And yeah, it just felt the right place to go. So we jumped on a plane a month after going through what we went through in Canada, and actually Emma's mum and dad live in Rangiora. And we went down there, and we were there for 5 months before Emma got the job at the Phoenix, and we moved up here. And it was a great place to be, right? You other than jumping, you know, I was in a gym one day and I was walking down the beach in Pegasus, and I bumped into two people that I, you know, randomly wouldn't have expected to see. Other than that, it was low key, and it was a nice place to be for sure after what I've been through.
Yeah. How did you cope personally with the stress of being a worldwide news story?
I think the reality is I didn't. You know, you think that you're a resilient person, you know, you've been through a lot of pressure, and, you know, you think this game teaches you a lot of things. There was times I didn't, right? And I remember being in Rangiora, the time difference to Canada in Toronto, I remember it was 3 a.m. here, and it ends up being 9 a.m. in Toronto. And if my phone would go off, I'd wake up with, like, my heart would be racing, and it was just like a lot of, yeah, vivid memories that stand out to me. And actually, when I got up to Wellington in the January and we got in our own home, my whole body just shut down. You know, lymph nodes up everywhere, and your body tells you things, right? I'd coped, but at the end of the day, I'd been through trauma, stress, shame. You know, you can talk about a whole load of emotions, but you know, ultimately your body doesn't lie, and it knows what you've been through. And I didn't cope, you know. But in the end, I'm a high performer, or I've lived my life in a high performance environment where structure happens every day, right? You get up. You know what time everything is, especially in a camp world. Yeah. I had to do that. I had to get up, go to the gym, listen to a podcast. I had to, like, add that into my life. I refused in the entire time that I wasn't there. I never once watched, like, a Netflix series, because in my own mind, that was like the end of me. And so I was just like, and maybe that's what I needed to do in all reality. But I just added structure to my life and routine in the end, and that's what I did. And I had, you know, I spent some really good time with my little boy as well, that I have some really good memories of.
I just want to say thanks, Bev, because Goran asked, how did you cope? And your answer was, I didn't. And I think when you're in the position of leadership like you are, and you've been the head of such a high-performing program, one that had overcome the prevailing force in women's football in the US women's national team, and you're expected to be after every single margin, and then you've been called out publicly, you've gone through very formal processes, there's been discipline handed down. I think it would have been very easy for you to say, well, this is how I managed, this is how I coped. And the reality is, a lot of people in that situation don't for a period. So it's not a question, it's just thank you very much for saying, no, you don't in those situations, but you realize that it will end at some point. Is that a fair comment? Yeah,
100%. And I think you know, you always think, oh, your family is incredible. But the reality is let's say that when the shit hits the fan, right? Ultimately, those are the people that are there.
I think the fan was
right?
well off its hinges at its point there.
Yeah. But, like, those are the people that actually, you know, my dad always had this saying, and I'd always be like, oh, you know, he'd be like, look after number one, because no one else will, right? Yeah. And that was always he'd always say that to me. And I'm always like you know, I'd be the first to give anything, give my last dollar to, you know, that's me. I'm a little bit like that with the people I work with. But I think at the end of the day, when the shit does hit the fan, you're on your own. And actually, it's your family. And to be fair, some really good people in the game who just regularly called me, checked I was okay. You know, those people I will never, ever forget. It's actually the people that you think are in your corner that you realise actually they're not. And I think that's the bit that I don't want to change me as a person, right? You spend your life every day with people, and you know, and then you just hear nothing. And that's the bit that probably is a little bit sits with me, and it will forever, and it'll probably impact the way I am with people moving forward, but I don't want it to. I want to be the Bev that I was before, but these things do impact you.
At any point, Bev, did you go, I should probably think about walking away from football altogether. Like, this has had such an impact on me over the course of that year. Maybe I look at doing something else. Was that a thought that ever crossed your mind?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And, I joke now, Emma's like, you imagine you would have had your coffee cart. So I've always wanted like a side hustle of a coffee shop.
You don't
right?
need coffee, Bev, please.
No.
She's selling it. She's not drinking it. Please say
Honestly,
Please tell us you're not drinking it.
I know, honestly. But yeah, I went and looked at these little coffee carts down in Christchurch, and I had this vision of, like, I've always thought about like business, like a lot of things translate, right? Leadership, how you take something from, A to B to Z to C. And yeah, I looked at coffee carts, right? And then it got to the point of it got that close to Christmas, and then Emma got a job, and like it almost was like the things lifted a little bit. But yeah, I was gonna do a coffee cart business and kind of see where I went from there. But there's also other things. It blew my mind. I remember a couple of agents reaching out and being like, "Oh, this country, would love you a bit." And I'm like, I felt like saying, like, I'm banned. That I can't, yeah. So like, there was those little things where I was a little bit like, okay, well maybe there is life after this. So it was a little bit, but I've always said the best thing that happened to me, in a couple of ways, really. I think A, I served my time, but B, I think had I not had a ban and then tried to get a job and couldn't get a job, I think that would have been almost tougher in some ways. And so, yeah, I think everything happens for a reason.
Well, look, regardless of how things have played out, we are so grateful that you're back part of the New Zealand football fabric once again. And you mentioned earlier you've been here a number of times and had a number of different hats during your period here in New Zealand. I think your first role with New Zealand football was in the late noughties, I believe, maybe 2009. How have players changed, and how has the game changed in New Zealand within that time? That the players are faster, stronger, more capable on the ball? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think that the development of the overall system has like gone in a completely different direction. I still think there's a lot of work to do. If I'm being honest, I think like top to bottom alignment can still, make some huge gains and investment in the programme top to bottom. But I think you've got players like back in, if I think about the 2011 World Cup in Germany that I went to with New Zealand, you think about at the time, Katie Hoyle and people were playing in Germany in the top leagues in the world. I think you've now got football ferns also playing in the top leagues in the world. But I still think there's some work to do, and I think it's not the time to take our foot off the gas, because everywhere around the world is developing the women's game.
And just looking at that overall, Bev, I've been listening to Beck Smith and what she's doing with Crux Football. She's a regular on a lot of media at the moment. I think the self-promotion there and bringing visibility to the women's game. We're also seeing the US NWSL sides take on multi-million-dollar valuations. These are now large commercial and sporting institutions that have been set up and running. What are you seeing in the development overall of the women's game at the moment? Where are we going next?
Yeah, I think globally it's the best it's ever been, right? You look at the infrastructure in the best leagues and clubs around the world, like facilities, four-corner support with sports side, like it's reached the same sort of resourcing in terms of staff and facilities and things as the men's side. I think that has gone like a lot in NWSL, a WSL league. Like there's a big, but I do think there's still a gap between like the very best leagues and the next best leagues. And I think it's how we bridge those gaps where it is. I think the promotion, I think we have to be ready for more scrutiny, right? With that comes more expectation, scrutiny, public opinions. And I just hope that we have the infrastructure and players are ready to deal with that with maybe not the same level of salary. So, even look at the coaching, media and scrutiny. They aren't at the same salary and expectations as maybe the men's game, yet they're probably being judged at the same level. And so I think we're at a place now where it's ready to hit that another level. I just think everywhere around the world has to keep up. And otherwise, the gap is going to get even bigger. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Ifill, you've turned up again, mate. Do you want to ask a question before you fall off the line?
Do you know what? I've got no idea what's been said in the last 10 minutes, so I don't want to ask a question that's already been asked.
Ifill, we're talking about at the moment I think over the course of Bev's career as a coach, like the development of the women's game, but also like where is it? How amorphous is it? How big is it? Where is it going? That's the kind of vibe.
Okay, I mean, look, I'm in camp at the moment, and I've had a chance. My assistant coach is Katie Rood, who's always been a big advocate for the game, and she's saying there's still such a long way to go, but so pleased with how far we've come, and one of those is probably the mental side of the game, and how there's a lack of support kind of worldwide for certainly the women's game, and I think obviously how do we kind of bridge the gap there? What are the things we need to put in place that might be different from the men's game?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I was just saying, Paul, is, the expectation, the media scrutiny, everything is at a whole nother level, right? Anybody can be a keyboard warrior and, things can go viral very, very quickly. And I do think it is a little bit of that. And then, you look at players who maybe in the women's game can go from here to there, and the expectation now goes through the roof, and now they've got to live to that. And I think that's probably a little bit what we're seeing in the women's game is mental health. I mean, it's real everywhere, but I think it's probably not talked about enough. And I think for Macey Fraser to openly talk about that has been like really, really good. I think using your platform in that way is powerful. But I think, there's definitely mental health is real, right? Whether it be staff, players, anywhere in a high performance setting, to have mental health and then be in a microscope job is difficult for sure.
You mentioned Macey, and look, we've spoken to her previously on the Unused Subs, and we absolutely adore Macey, and what she can do on a football field is almost unrivaled from a New Zealand footballer's perspective. Knowing what you've been through over the last year and a half, and knowing what she's been going through over the course of her adult life, how closely are you connected with her in trying to help her back to the football field? Because I think at some point you got to say, well, playing sport and being involved in that Wellington Phoenix community will be very beneficial for Macey as well. You only got to go back a number of years to see Sir John Kerwin. He's been a great advocate for getting out, being physical, being active to help with your mental health.
Yeah, and I think, what the club has done a very good job of. I think sometimes as a coach, you have to know that actually you don't have the skills or you're not the right person to help someone. Because ultimately, you've got your team hat on, and then there's an individual maybe who needs more support. So I think what the club have done a very good job is very early. They put a plan in place. They had a mental support person who manages the process. And Macey's stuck to a really good structure now of getting the help she needs, and she's worked tirelessly. She said, it's been one of the toughest things she's had to go through in her life, but actually it's the thing that she really needed. So she now is in with us more than she's ever been, and she's got a smile on her face. But what I do know is, very quickly things can change too. So for me, my job, I think, is to just, relax that a little bit and just let Macey work through what she needs to work through. But she's on the pitch. She played against some boys at the weekend for us, which is great. And I do feel like she's on the journey to be where Macey needs to be. But I'm really proud of the work she's put in and faced, what she needed to face to be the best she can be.
That's wonderful news to hear that she's back on the park. It really is.
I think it's a little insight that we're not aware of because she has taken that step away. So thanks for that, Bev. Now, just pivoting now, I asked the same question of Joe Montemurro when I was over in Melbourne. So you've got a high standard to live up to here, Bev.
Okay.
No pressure.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that I guess we constantly reflect on is that you've got this established men's game, and it's got its norms, it's got its institutions. The women's game is going through a period of growth, and with that comes opportunity not only to realise what the value is, but also to avoid or correct mistakes that are inherent in the men's game. And Joe's response and he talked for 15 minutes, and I've forgotten a lot of it, but he said, stop comparing. And he said, allow women's football to figure itself out as it goes and stand on its own 2 feet. And then we can understand what the differences are. But asking the same question of you, what are the missteps, what are the mistakes that are now intertwined in the men's game that you don't want to see repeated on the women's side?
Yeah, I think he's probably got a point there in terms of, the comparison's very easy to compare, right? And then you can be underwhelmed with maybe attendances and all the rest of it. I think I do agree that it's at a point maybe that the amount of growth that's happened is not the same as the men's, right? It's very much on a different trajectory of maybe where it's been. The game was banned, in way back when, and so it's been on its own journey. I know, it's been on its own journey, so I think we have to let it take its own journey. I think, is there certain things I would like to see? I think just like the certain values that I think that stand up in the women's game, like you hear uninformed or people who don't really watch the women's game, but some of what they'll say is, these women don't roll around the pitch like the men do, like you hear all of this. But I think there's certain values that you see in the women's game, and I think there's certain stories that actually can inspire, whether you're going to be a footballer or not, that maybe you get to do, right? You get to cover mums. Like CJ Bott is going to be a mum. You can have a career whilst being a mum. That is probably changing some mindsets and some norms of a modern, society, right? You can have a career and you can be a mum. Guess what? That's great. So I think there's certain stories and things that sit inside the women's game that I think is very different, and that you can draw upon for just society, not just football. But I think living with the growth that's going with, and not sprinting before we can run, is something that I think is really, really important. And I think, you look at ACL injuries and you look at all the things that we're learning, is some of that because of the growth and how quickly it's happened, right? At academies around the world, in Europe, boys started very, very young, and with that they would have had a prehab programme, and they've been, gradually progressed into professional football. In the women's game, arguably, it's gone from not having any of that and then go and play in the Champions League semi-final to that level of intensity. Is your body sort of being gradually built up to do that? So I think there's a lot of things that are different, and we have to respect that.
The thing that I pulled out of that, and I think all the wonderful stuff that you've talked about with the development and the infrastructure around the players and the performance on the field, but I think for us in particular, G, it's that focus and that importance of storytelling. And that's the thing that I really love, Bev. We're trying to do that with a Kiwi focus, but I think go down another layer, and the Kiwi female focus is something that's really interesting for me.
On the subject of storytelling, let's indulge Bev her best ever story. I'm assuming it must be, because I don't know too many people who have won an Olympic gold medal. And the way that you did it with the Canadian national team, to beat Brazil in a quarter, to beat USA in a semi, and then go to penalties to beat Sweden to claim that gold medal. A simple question from me, Bev. What is it like to win a gold medal at the Olympics?
You know what? Because it was a COVID Olympics, I actually don't feel for me or the players that it ever really sunk in. Because you can imagine you FaceTiming. Well, I didn't get the staff don't get a gold medal, which is another story. I was fine with it.
So you don't have one?
Whoa.
You don't have one?
Coaches don't. Nope, the coaches don't
That's
get them.
a
And
no.
before that, I was like,
bullshit.
oh, guys, don't worry about it. Don't worry. But then when you actually win it, you're like, oh, man, it would have been good to actually get a gold medal. But yeah, you can imagine in that moment, there's no one in the stands. Your family's not there. And all I'm seeing is Christine Sinclair and people on FaceTime with a medal around their neck. And so it was very surreal because of that. So that is very unique in its own sense. But I think the minute I got back to my life had changed, right? You're out for dinner. You've got people your dinner's being paid for, you can't walk down the street. And so very quickly overnight, it changed forever, right? And I think that was cool. And I remember the day of the gold medal, I knew, for some reason, don't ask me why, but I knew we were going to beat the US. I remember being on the bus and I just knew it.
Yep.
I knew it. You see it, you feel it as a coach, right? You know that your team is, even going in, I had 6 months really. I took over in the February and the Olympics was in July. And the team before that had really fallen to top 10 teams, conceded a lot of goals. I think it was 14, 16 goals in 8 games. So very quickly, I knew what I needed to fix. And so that's what I put a lot of attention, obviously, on defending. We didn't score a lot of goals, but we defended well. And going in that US game, I knew that we were going to win. But the minute the whistle blew, it was almost like I knew it felt like their final. For 20 years, they've been trying to beat the US, arch rivals. And I'm looking around and all of the senior players, it was their final. And I'm thinking, shit, how am I going to get this team turned around for an actual final? Like, has it drained the life out of us to actually go and do what we've done? And so in that moment, we moved into the Olympic Village. And you're not in the Olympic Village. Well, we weren't until the final. Yep. And you can imagine, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to an Olympic Village, but yes, it's like, yeah, there's a lot. And so very quickly I was like, right, guys, and the old Bev would have given more meetings, more sessions, And I thought, nah, like, give them an extra day off, go and be Olympians, do what you need to do, and the freshest team will win this gold medal. And I remember that day, it just felt very like surreal. And we looked drained, right? First half, I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be a long 90 minutes.
We needed more meetings.
But yeah, we did it.
You're thinking that, Bev. We needed more meetings.
We needed more meetings. But we did it. And we put a lot of attention on penalties before the Olympics and in the Olympics. I'd obviously been at England where Gareth Southgate, and I don't know if you've read his book, but there was a lot of attention on penalties leading into their World Cup and in the women's, our 2019 World Cup. So I carried a lot of that knowledge into that team going into the Olympic Games.
I need to get in touch. I don't know how you do this, but I need to get in touch with the IOC and ensure a gold medal is delivered.
Maybe don't.
No?
Maybe don't.
Oh, yeah, maybe I shouldn't. Yeah,
No.
okay.
Yeah,
well, I could say it's for a friend. I don't need to specifically say that it's for you, Bev.
But
fair.
Have you got to hold one, Bev? Did you get to your chance to have your moment with it?
The players were good. You got to hold it and things, and it was nice. It was a bit, like I say, surreal. I remember that Olympics. You couldn't leave your hotel. Like all the players were just confined for the entire time, other than going to the pitch. I might have got a sneaky 5K in the car park and I remember doing that 5K and thinking, I would never, ever in a million years. I remember looking at when you've done a run, and I'm thinking, I literally like 10 by 10. If someone had said to me, go and run 10, I would have told them to get lost. But I think at that point, you're a bit delusional, and you've just been locked in a hotel for all that time. And it was surreal.
The fact that there weren't any fans in the stadium, did that not undermine, but did that take some of the gloss off what is an amazing accomplishment?
Yeah, I think, I watched the footage, and obviously when you've went and done that, and then we go on a celebration tour around Canada and things, and you get to see a bit more of the footage that you just never got to see. It does feel a bit hollow, and did it help us? Did it hinder us? Who knows? But yeah, regardless, you're with a group of people that you've set a very bold vision of, we're going to change the colour of the medal. They'd gone back-to-back bronze, and, I'd come in and I'd put that real big goal out there to the world. I think to see a group of people dialed in to do anything in their power to do that, who genuinely loved each other, spent every day together, I think to achieve that with a group, fans or no fans, it was very, very special, and no one can ever take that away from you. The feeling of that pride that you have in that moment for the players.
It's a unique achievement, then, is what I'm hearing from Bev.
Yeah, all the fans may not have been in attendance in Tokyo, what was it now, almost 5 years ago, but they certainly will be watching your Wellington Phoenix women on their way to the playoffs. And all I ask of you, Bev, in wrapping things up, and thank you so much for your time, is that you replicate that run in Tokyo with your women's team, and we take them to a title for the very first time.
For this, we'll get
you a medal.
We'll make sure you get a
medal.
medal.
We'll make you something.
Yeah.
Love that. That would be amazing. Because you know what? If I get that medal, that means we've done it. So there we go.
This has been another outstanding episode of the Unused Subs, proudly presented by McDonald's.